The dust of the Pontic steppe was not soil. It was a living, breathing entity that coated the throat with the taste of ancient grass and dried manure. It was May 31st, 1223. The heat was a physical weight, pressing down on the iron nasal helmet of Dmitri, a 20-year-old Druzinic retainer in the service of Prince Mstislav, the Bold of Galicia. Dmitri rode his sweating bay mare near the front of the vast, chaotic column, his eyes squinting against the glare of the endless horizon. Dmitri's normal was the intoxicating, dangerous arrogance of the chase. For 9 days, the Rus coalition, a massive, disjointed serpent of 80,000 men, had been chasing the Tatars. That was what they called them, strange, bow-legged men on ponies who had appeared from the east like a plague of locusts. For 9 days, the enemy had run. They had fled before the might of the Rus princes, leaving behind livestock, wagons, and prisoners. To Dmitri, and to the thousands of warriors around him, this was not a war, it was a hunt. The enemy was terrified. The enemy was broken. The machinery of survival here was the horse and the lance, but mostly, it was the ego of the princes. The army was not one body, it was three. Mstislav of Galicia led the vanguard, eager to claim the glory. Mstislav of Kiev lagged behind, cautious and resentful. The Cumans, their nomad allies, rode on the flanks, anxious and whispering of demons. The noise of the march was a cacophony, the jingling of mail, the shouting of boasts between regiments, the thunder of 40,000 hooves beating the dry earth into a suffocating cloud. Dmitri wiped a smear of grime from his cheek. He looked at his commander, Bojar Alexei, a giant of a man whose beard was matted with dust. Alexei was laughing, pointing his mace toward the river line ahead the Kalka. They run like rabbits, Dmitri. Alexei roared over the wind. Look at them, they cross the river in panic. We will catch them against the water and butcher them before the sun sets. They leave good plunder, Dmitri shouted back, gesturing to a pile of discarded saddles they had passed earlier. They are shedding weight to run faster. Cowards, Alexei spat. They have no stomach for iron. It was 10 o'clock. The sun was high and brutal. The vanguard was approaching the river crossing. The mood was electric. Victory was not a possibility. It was an assumption. The only fear was that there wouldn't be enough Tatars left to kill. Then came the disturbance. It wasn't a visible threat. It was a rhythm that broke. Dmitri was riding near the Cuman auxiliaries, the scouts who knew the steppe best. He noticed Yarosh, a Cuman elder who had ridden with them for weeks, suddenly pull his horse to a violent halt. Yarosh wasn't looking at the fleeing Mongols across the river. He was looking at the ground. Dmitri trotted over. "What is it, old man?" "The rabbit is getting away." Yarosh slid off his horse. Haight knelt in the dirt, examining a patch of hoofprints left by the retreating Mongol rearguard. He picked up a handful of dung. He broke it open. It was moist, fresh, but Yarosh's face went pale under his tan. He held up a discarded arrow found in the grass. "Look," Yarosh whispered. "The fletching? It is new, perfectly wrapped. And the HOOFPRINTS. Look at the depth. They are deep," Dmitri said. "They are running hard." "No," Yarosh hissed, looking at the river with terrified eyes. "They are deep because the horses are heavy. They are not tired. A tired horse steps light, drags its hooves. These horses are stepping high. They're digging in for traction. And the arrow. A fleeing army does not leave perfect arrows. They shoot them." Yarosh looked at Dmitri. "They are not running, Bojar. They are pacing us." Dmitri felt a cold prickle of unease. It was a small thing, a hoofprint, an arrow, but it gnawed at the normal narrative of the route. Then came the convoy that never arrived. A rider from the rear, a messenger from Mstislav of Kuv, came galloping up the line, his horse foaming. He was shouting for Mstislav the Bold. He was intercepted by Alexei and Dmitri just short of the prince's standard. "Halt!" the messenger gasped. "Order! From the Grand Prince of Kiev, the main supply train, the heavy infantry, ... They have stopped." Stopped. Alexei growled. "Why?" "They are fortifying a camp on the ridge, 3 miles back," the messenger said, pointing to the high ground behind them. "The Grand Prince refuses to cross the river. He says the line is too stretched. He says the vanguard is unsupported. You must wait for the heavy wagons. You must wait for the convoys of arrows and water." The order to halt had been issued. The support convoy, the spine of the army, was not coming. The vanguard was dangling alone, separated from its main strength by miles of open steppe. Dmitri looked at Alexei. This was the moment. The instability of human judgment was about to tip the scales. If they halted, they reconnected with the main force. They would be safe, but they would lose the glory of the kill. Alexei looked at the river. He looked at the retreating Mongols, who seemed so close, just on the other bank. He looked at the messenger with contempt. "Kiev is an old woman," Alexei sneered. "He wants to steal our victory by slowing us down. He wants us to wait so he can claim the first head." Alexei turned to Mstislav the Bold, who had ridden up. "Prince Kiev tells us to halt. He says we are too fast." Mstislav the Bold laughed. It was a harsh, metallic sound. "We do not wait for cowards. We cross. The order is rescinded. Tell Kiev to catch up if he wants plunder." The order was rescinded to Laidator, rather. The warning was ignored in the fever of pride. The conviction that the enemy was broken overrode the factual reality of the separated army. The convoy of support was abandoned. The vanguard surged forward, splashing into the Kalka River, disorderly, shouting, drunk on arrogance. Dmitri rode into the water. The cool splash should have been refreshing. Instead, it felt like a boundary line. He looked back at Yarash, the Cuman. The old man hadn't crossed. He was turning his horse around, fleeing to the flanks. Dmitri felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "They are pacing us." They reached the far bank. The ground opened up into a wide, flat plain. It's perfect for cavalry. The Mongols were there, a small force, maybe 1,000. They fired a few desultory arrows and turned their horses, retreating further toward a line of low hills. "Charge!" Mstislav roared. "Run them down!" The Rus cavalry, strung out, disorganized, spurred their horses. They chased the shadows, and then the trap snapped shut. It didn't happen with a roar. It happened with smoke. On the crest of the hills, 3 columns of black smoke rose simultaneously into the still air. The retreating Mongols stopped. Instantly, in perfect unison, 1,000 horses turned. They didn't look tired. They looked like statues coming to life. And from behind the hills, the ocean arrived. Subutai and Jeeb, the Mongol generals, had hidden their main force, 20,000 heavy lancers, in the dead ground. They flowed over the crest like oil. They weren't a mob. They were a grid, silent, disciplined, terrifying. Dmitri pulled on his reins, ether skidding in the dirt. "Alexei!" he screamed. "Look!" Alexei didn't answer. An arrow, black-fletched and whistling with a sound like tearing silk, took him in the throat. The air filled with the hiss of death. The Mongol composite bows, capable of punching through mail at distinct ranges, opened up. It wasn't a volley. It was a storm. The Rus vanguard slammed into a wall of iron. The broken enemy was fresh, rested, and fighting in a formation that had conquered half the world. The Rus, exhausted from the 9-day chase, their horses blown, their lines chaotic, disintegrated on contact. Back to the river. Someone screamed, but there was no back. The Cumans on the flanks had already rooted, stampeding back into the Rus lines, causing chaos. The heavy infantry from Kiev, the convoy that never arrived, was 3 miles away. Watching from their hill, refusing to move, Dmitri fought for his life. It was a blur of dust and blood. He blocked a saber cut with his shield, the wood shattering. He thrust his lance into a Mongol pony, the beast screaming. The Mongols used the standard sweep. They pinned the Rus against the river. There was no room to maneuver. The press of bodies was suffocating. Men were crushed by their own horses. Dmitri was knocked from his saddle. He hit the ground hard, the breath driven from him. He scrambled under a wagon, one of the few that had made it across. He watched the slaughter from ground level. It was efficient, industrial. The Mongols didn't celebrate. They just killed. Thrust, cut, move. He saw Mstislav, the bold, the man, who had rescinded the order to wait, fleeing back across the river. Abandoning his men, Dmitri lay in the dirt, the dust turning to mud with blood. He looked east. He watched the horizon burning red and thought it was dawn, till he realized the sun was still hours away. The red wasn't the sun. It was the reflection of the Mongol fire arrows hitting the dry grass, creating a ring of fire to corral the survivors. It was the burning horizon of a world ending. The trap at the Kalka River wasn't just a defeat. It was an extermination. The convoy that never arrived, the prudent, slow main army of Kiev, would be surrounded and besieged the next day. Tricked into surrender and then crushed under wooden boards while the Mongols feasted on top of them. Dmitri closed his eyes, listening to the screams that replaced the cheers of the morning. He realized then that the retreat had been a weapon, sharper than any sword. The instability of human judgment, the pride that mistook caution for cowardice, had led 80,000 men into a perfect, silent grave. The wolf hadn't run. The wolf had simply led the sheep to the slaughterhouse. The slaughterhouse.